When you decide to wake up early, you are not merely responding to an alarm clock. You are making a statement about who you are and who you intend to become. People often think discipline is about grand gestures, about monumental decisions that define destiny. But the truth is far more subtle, far more humbling, and far more liberating. Discipline is not built in extraordinary moments. It is constructed brick by brick, decision by decision, in the ordinary routines of life. And waking up early is one of the most fundamental bricks you can lay. Consider this: every single morning before you even engage with the world, you are presented with a choice. Do you remain in bed, surrendering to comfort, or do you rise despite the resistance, despite the temptation to stay where it's warm, where it's safe, where it's familiar? That moment, small as it might appear, is an existential battle. And it is precisely in these battles that character is formed. If you cannot win against your own impulse to remain asleep, how will you stand against the difficulties of life? If you cannot govern your mornings, how do you expect to govern your ambitions, your responsibilities, your future? Waking up early is not about productivity alone. It's about identity. It says, I am the kind of person who gets up, even when I don't feel like it. And that builds something inside you that is far more valuable than comfort. It builds resilience, it builds courage, it builds trust in yourself, because discipline is not about punishing yourself, it's about creating a self that you can respect. Now, think about the word discipline. It comes from the same root as disciple. Someone who follows a path, a teaching, a structure. To be disciplined is to follow a pattern of order, and human beings need order. Chaos will find us, whether we invite it or not. The world is unpredictable, full of suffering, full of struggle, full of complexities we cannot always manage, but discipline, especially in the form of how we govern our time, is a weapon against chaos. It provides structure. It gives us a foothold in a world that often feels like it's spinning out of control. And the morning is the most powerful place to establish that foothold. When you rise early, before the noise of the world has invaded your mind, you carve out a sacred territory for order. You claim responsibility for the first hours of the day, and that responsibility radiates outward. You make your bed, you stretch your body, you prepare your mind, and in that process, you affirm that you are capable of confronting the chaos of existence. People underestimate this. They say, it's just waking up. What difference does it make? But the difference is enormous, because it's not about the act, it's about the principle. Small disciplines compound. The victory of rising early is not confined to the morning. It echoes into every choice that follows. And here is the crucial part. Discipline is not merely a burden, it is a source of freedom. People confuse freedom with the absence of structure, as though to be free means to do whatever you want, whenever you want. But that's not freedom. That's chaos disguised as liberation. Real freedom emerges when you impose discipline on yourself, when you master your impulses rather than being enslaved by them. A person who cannot wake up early because they are chained to the comfort of sleep is not free. They are a captive to their own biology, their own weakness. But a person who trains themselves to rise, to act, to take charge of the day, they are free because they are not ruled by circumstance or desire. So, waking up early becomes a symbolic act of self-governance. You are, in essence, declaring, I am the master of my own house. I will not allow laziness, fear, or comfort to dictate the direction of my life. And when you live this way consistently, the respect you gain for yourself compounds. That self-respect becomes confidence, and that confidence becomes influence, and that influence transforms not only your life, but the lives of those around you, because people notice. They see when someone carries discipline in their body, in their words, in their very presence. It's magnetic, because discipline is rare, and what is rare is valuable. Now let's move to the second idea, one that connects seamlessly to the first, the clarity and focus that comes from the early morning. If discipline is the foundation, clarity is the architecture that sits upon it. Because what good is discipline if it is not directed towards something meaningful? You can wake up early every day, but if you do not use that time with focus, you are like a runner sprinting in circles, expending energy but going nowhere. This is why the early morning is so crucial. In the quiet before the world awakens, when the noise of society has not yet drowned your thoughts, you have access to a kind of mental clarity that is almost impossible to find later in the day. During those hours, your mind is unpolluted by distractions, your emotions are less tangled, your attention is sharper. You can think more clearly, reflect more deeply, and plan more effectively. Think about it. When you wake up late, rushed, scrambling to meet obligations, your day begins in chaos. You are reacting to demands rather than setting intentions. The phone is buzzing, emails are piling up, people are already asking for your attention. You are thrown into the stream of external pressures before you've even had a moment to ask yourself, what do I want this day to mean? What is the purpose of my actions? How do I align my time with what matters most to me? But when you wake up early, you get to answer those questions. You take time to think about your life. You can sit in silence, journal, meditate, pray, read. Whatever practice helps you center yourself. These are not luxuries. They are necessities for a meaningful existence. Because without clarity, life becomes mechanical. You wake up, you work, you sleep, you repeat, without ever pausing to ask why. And that is the fastest way to drift into emptiness. Clarity is what separates activity from achievement. It ensures that the hours you gain by waking up early are not wasted on trivialities, but are invested in what truly matters. It might be studying for your future career, working on a skill, nurturing your health, or building a project that excites your soul. Whatever it is, those hours are sacred, and clarity ensures they are not squandered. And let's speak about focus, because clarity without focus is like having a map, but no ability to walk the road. Focus is the ability to direct your attention without being constantly hijacked by distractions. In the modern world, this is harder than ever. Notifications, advertisements, endless streams of entertainment, they pull at your mind, fragment your attention, and weaken your capacity to engage deeply with anything. But in the early morning, when the world is silent, you reclaim that capacity. You can sit down and read without interruption. You can write without distraction. You can train your body without being pulled away. The early hours are a sanctuary for deep work. Neuroscience even supports this. Your brain operates in cycles, and the early morning is a period when willpower and cognitive energy are at their peak, provided you've rested properly. That means your ability to focus, to solve problems, to generate ideas, is sharper. This is why so many of history's great thinkers, writers, and leaders insisted on rising early. They understood that those hours are not just additional time, they are premium time. You hours where the mind functions at its best, but it's not only about productivity, it's about perspective. In the quiet of the morning, you see things differently. You can step back and look at the larger picture of your life rather than being swept away by immediate concerns. You realize that not every problem is urgent, not every demand is essential, not every distraction deserves your attention. That perspective allows you to live more intentionally, to act rather than react, to lead rather than follow. When you combine discipline with clarity, you create a formidable force. Discipline ensures that you show up, that you wake up, that you take the first step. Clarity ensures that the steps you take lead somewhere meaningful. Together, they form the foundation of a life that is not only successful but purposeful. Time is the one resource that levels all of us. It doesn't matter how rich you are, how poor, how educated, how privileged. Every human being is given the same 24 hours in a day. What differentiates people, what creates extraordinary achievement in some and mediocrity in others, is not the quantity of time, but the quality of how it is used. And waking up early grants you an extraordinary advantage because it is not simply the addition of hours, it is the acquisition of hours that are unclaimed by anyone else. Think about the world during those first early hours. It is quiet. The streets are empty. Your phone isn't buzzing. People aren't knocking on your door, asking for your attention, pulling you into their emergencies. Those hours are yours, and they are rare, because for most of the day, you are not free. You are responding to demands, work deadlines, family responsibilities, social pressures. You are constantly reacting to the needs of others. But when you rise early, you steal back time. You reclaim a portion of life that belongs to no one else but you. And what do you do with that time? That's the crucial question. If you spend it scrolling, wasting, drifting, then it's nothing more than empty space. But if you dedicate those hours to growth, learning, creating, strengthening your body, sharpening your mind, then you transform what would have been wasted into an investment that compounds over years. People underestimate this because they think in days, not in decades. But imagine this. If you wake up just 2 hours earlier every day, that's over 700 additional hours in a year. 700 hours is more than 4 months of full-time work. Over a decade, that's the equivalent of several years of progress you've accumulated while others were still sleeping. Now consider what you could build with those years: a book, a business, a body of knowledge that makes you indispensable, a character so strong that people know they can depend on you. The truth is, time compounds like interest. The earlier you invest, the more it multiplies. That's why people who rise early and discipline themselves to use those hours productively often appear to be living lives that others consider lucky or gifted. It isn't luck, it isn't magic, it's arithmetic. They have simply bought themselves more life, and there's another element to this, the psychological advantage. Knowing that you are awake and working while others are asleep instills a sense of quiet power. It creates momentum before the competition has even begun. Athletes know this. Soldiers know this. Entrepreneurs know this. There is something profoundly motivating about being ahead of the curve, about feeling that you've already done what most people will never do. It's not arrogance, it's responsibility. Because once you realize you have those hours, you also realize you are accountable for what you do with them. That accountability pushes you further, sharpens your discipline, and ingrains in you a sense of seriousness about life. The people who squander time are the ones who later regret it most bitterly. You cannot buy back your mornings when you are 60, wishing you had spent your youth more wisely. You cannot pay someone to live with more intention on your behalf. The hours slip by, whether you use them or not, and waking up early is the clearest, most direct way to ensure that you use them with purpose. Now let's move to the fourth principle, one that ties these ideas together, the notion that you win the day before it even begins. Success, contrary to popular belief, is rarely decided in big moments. It is decided in small habits, in patterns of behavior that accumulate and eventually determine who you are. The way you start your day sets the tone for everything that follows. If you begin in chaos, waking up late, rushing, skipping breakfast, drowning in emails, you are already behind, and you carry that sense of being behind into every task. You are reactive, anxious, constantly chasing rather than leading. But if you begin with intention, if you wake up early, collect your thoughts, structure your priorities, move your body, you carry a different energy. You carry momentum, clarity, and a sense of control. And that changes not just your productivity, but your psychology. You walk into challenges already having achieved something. You've already claimed victory against your weaker self, and that inner victory makes external battles easier to confront. There's something deeply symbolic about mornings. They represent renewal, rebirth, the chance to start again. Each sunrise is a reminder that yesterday's failures do not dictate today's potential. But here's the thing, the symbolism only matters if you act on it. If you let the morning slip by in laziness, you've wasted the opportunity for renewal. But if you seize it, if you treat those first hours as sacred, you create momentum that carries through the entire day. Momentum is an underappreciated force in human life. Once you are moving, once you've achieved something, even something small, your mind and body generate the energy to continue. That's why making your bed, exercising, journaling, or reading in the morning are so powerful. They are not trivial. They are signals to your brain that the day has begun with intention, and intention multiplies. It becomes easier to eat well, to focus on work, to resist distractions, because you have already aligned yourself with a standard of discipline. But momentum works both ways. If you start your day by hitting snooze, by checking your phone compulsively, by stumbling into the world unprepared, you've already surrendered. And that surrender is not confined to the morning. It bleeds into your afternoon, your evening, your entire life. This is why people who consistently wake up late, disorganized, often feel perpetually behind, perpetually overwhelmed. They are not just losing hours, they are losing psychological ground. Winning the day before it begins means taking ownership of that fragile window of time between waking and acting. It means structuring rituals that align you with your highest values. It means resisting the path of least resistance, because the path of least resistance in the morning becomes the path of least resistance for the rest of the day. And that path always leads downward toward mediocrity, toward resentment, toward regret. There is also a deeper spiritual element to this. The early morning carries a sense of stillness that is almost sacred. When you rise before the world, you enter a silence that connects you to something beyond the chaos of daily life. Philosophers, monks, artists, they have all recognized the power of this stillness. It is a time when the mind is more receptive, when creativity flourishes, when the weight of existence feels lighter. If you allow yourself to experience that, if you cultivate awareness in those hours, you are not merely winning the day, you are orienting your soul. And let's not forget, life is difficult, suffering is inevitable. You will face obstacles, failures, tragedies. These are not possibilities, they are certainties. The question is not whether hardship will come, but whether you will be prepared to meet it. And the preparation begins in the small disciplines, in the daily victories that strengthen your resilience. Waking up early, structuring your mornings, winning the day before it begins. These are not superficial habits. They are training grounds for character. They teach you to master yourself before life demands that you face greater trials. When you wake early and use that time with discipline and clarity, you are rehearsing for life's battles. You are proving to yourself day after day that you are capable of rising, literally and metaphorically. And the more often you rise, the stronger you become. Then when adversity strikes, you don't collapse. You've trained, you've prepared, you've built the inner scaffolding necessary to withstand the storm. This is why it matters so profoundly. Waking up early is not about some arbitrary lifestyle trend. It is about aligning yourself with a way of being that multiplies your time, sharpens your mind, and builds a foundation for victory long before the world has demanded anything from you. It is about stacking the deck in your favor, not by cheating, not by luck, but by discipline, clarity, and the intelligent use of time.